Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me back. It's so nice to be here. Well, this is really so exciting. I mean, you've learned about the tzaddik, and the tzaddik. I think we always kind of understood that there's this righteous person called a tzaddik, and we thought that our goal was to strive to be like the tzaddik. But what the Alter Rebbe told us in the Tanya is just so liberating. That a tzaddik has a different soul and a different mission. A tzaddik has no taiva to do anything against the Eibishter. Non-kosher food there's no appetite for it, for a tzaddik. It's, if the Eibishter doesn't like it, he doesn't like it. That's not something we can strive to be. That's a special neshama that's born with a different mission. A different mission, not the mission of making this unholy world into a holy world, because he's living in a holy world. But his job is to be an example and a teacher to us of what a holy world looks like, what we're striving to make this world to be. He has to have a different, he has to not be challenged by it so that he can show us what it looks like. But never will we, the average person, be able to not have an appetite for non-kosher food. And what's so amazing about what the Alter Rebbe tells us about the Beinonit is that to be a Beinonit is to have constant thoughts come into your head that are unholy. Constant desires for something unholy. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that seems good. That's exciting. There's always something piquing our interest that's not in line with holiness. And it used to be that we would be hard on ourselves. Why am I like this? Why do I want that? I'm so bad. Why can't I be holier? And the Alter Rebbe tells us, if you say, why do I want that? Why am I so mean? Why do I have such unholy thoughts? It means that you want to be a tzaddik. You think you should be as holy as a tzaddik. And then you're giving yourself a different agenda and a different goal than the Eibishter has for you. Hashem never planned and never needed for you to be a tzaddik. So if we're striving to be a tzaddik, and if we're getting upset at ourselves for having unholy thoughts, for having an unholy feeling, then whose goal, whose world are we in? Whose job are we here to fill? Our own or God's? In our minds, we would like to be a tzaddik, and we have that expectation of ourselves to be better than we are. But that's not the way Hashem made us, and it's not what he needs from us. So what's our job? If we're never going to get rid of those unholy thoughts and those unholy desires, then what's the goal? What are we striving for? And that's the amazing mission of the Beinonit. The Beinonit is somebody who will always, Hashem is going to put those thoughts in your head. And that's not up to us whether the thoughts will come or not, whether the interest or the desire will come or not. It's not up to us. We're in God's world. This is how he created us. So our job as a Beinonit is to be able to be a very imperfect person and yet say, I want to do something unholy. I am thinking about something unholy. A thought is coming my way, but Hashem doesn't like it, so I won't go there. Listen to how incredible the mission of the Beinonit is, the job of the Beinonit. He will never be holy. It will never be him that he only wants holiness and mitzvahs and what's right. That's just not who he is. And yet he, on a daily, moment by moment basis, he's able to say, I want that. And yet Hashem doesn't want me to eat that. Hashem doesn't want me to do that. Hashem doesn't want me to say that. Hashem doesn't want me to think that, so I won't. And he doesn't. Each time that he chooses to do it the way God likes it, rather than the way he likes it, that is making a dira b'tachtainim. That is bringing God down into the unholy world. Which unholy world? Into my mind, into my heart, into my thoughts. My thoughts are the chutzah. They're so far from holiness. They're so simple and unholy. And yet, in that place, I'm bringing Hashem's thoughts. I'm thinking unholy thoughts, but then I remember Hashem doesn't like it. So I choose a holy thought. I don't indulge in my natural thought process. I don't indulge in my natural desires. I stop and think, what does Hashem like? And then I go with his desire. That I would imagine that every tzaddik is in awe of the Beinonit. Has to be. The tzaddik has a very different struggle. The tzaddik goes from good to better, to better, to better. But for the tzaddik, and it says this in Tanya, I think it's in Perek Yud, I'm not sure what Perek you're up to, but it says in Tanya that there's different levels of the tzaddik, and the highest level of the tzaddik is the tzaddik that is able to do a mitzvah not to quench his desire, not because it feels so good for the tzaddik to do holiness, to do mitzvahs, but he does the mitzvah for tzarech gavayha, for the higher need. What's the higher need? The higher need is God's need. So the tzaddik likes the mitzvah, and Hashem likes the mitzvah. For a tzaddik to be able to look past his own enjoyment of the mitzvah and do it because the Eibishter likes the mitzvah is an incredible level. And that's the highest level of a tzaddik. But we have a different struggle. Of course, we can find enjoyment in the mitzvah, but we also have many other enjoyments. Many enjoyments of liking all kinds of things, and yet we can put those things aside to say, what does Hashem like? So it turns out that we, as a simple Beinonit today, can reach the level of the highest level tzaddik. Because when we say it's not about me, but it's l'tzarech gavaya, it's for the higher need, that's like the highest level tzaddik. But we're not putting aside our holy desires, we're putting aside our unholy desires. So the really exciting thing that we learn in Tanya is to just take a deep breath and to accept exactly the way the Eibishter made us, where we are, what our personality is like, what our family was like, what our baggage is like, what our package is like, what our families and our situation and our challenges, and say, it's all imperfect. And my goal is not to make them perfect and not to become the most perfect me that I can be, not to become a tzaddik, but to be the imperfect me and moment by moment, choose the Eibishter. Say, you don't like it, I won't do it for you. Me, this unholy person, won't do it for, will do what you want instead of what I want. And that, I think what you titled the class today is The Perfection of the Average Jewish Woman. That is so incredibly perfect. To be able to be imperfect and yet think a holy thought, do a holy action, say something holy. That's incredible. So let's leave ourselves as we are and not have the goal of trying to be better, 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 but just say, one moment at a time, can I do something, say something, think something that Hashem likes? And this is the mission of our generation. This is the mission of the average Beinonit. And today it's more possible than ever before because of all the chassidus that's available in today's world. But what's interesting for the Jewish woman is that it says in the times of Mashiach that the women are going to lead. And it's already happening. The feminine is the way to go. We need to lead the world into Mashiach. What does that mean? In what way do we need to lead? So we spoke about this a little bit at the other class, about the difference between the sun and the moon, and the feminine and the masculine, that the sun is looking at the surface and the moon is looking beneath the surface to the goal, to the purpose, to the mission, and that women are compared to the moon and men are compared to the sun, which means that Hashem created us in a way that we have an easier time. If we tap into our feminine soul, we have an easier time looking beneath the surface, looking to what's really going on. And that becomes obvious to us rather than just what we can see with our eyes. So this, what the Alter Rebbe is teaching us about being a Beinonit, you really need the moonlight. You really need the feminine view of the world to be able to appreciate this. Because from the sunlight and from the masculine point of view, if somebody is not a holy person and somebody has unholy thoughts and somebody made so many mistakes, he has every reason to be depressed. Or she can say, you know, I just feel so bad about myself. I can't get out of bed. I'm so unworthy. That's what it looks like in the sunlight. But with the feminine view, with the moonlight view, the Alter Rebbe is teaching us, because the teachings of Chassidus are feminine. They're the feminine view of Torah. So we can relate to them much quicker and then be an example to our husbands, to our sons, to the world, that don't look at the surface. That's not the whole story. When you see a Jew who's doing nothing right, and he thinks that he's just failing as a Jew, a woman can see him and see a completely different picture. She says, yeah, you're imperfect. That's on the surface. That's the way you were supposed to be. That's the way you were created. You have a mission to do from that unholy place. From that unholy place, can you do one mitzvah? Can you do 2 mitzvahs? Can you do something for God in that unholy place? From where you are, from how you are. And if he can, or if she can do a mitzvah despite her unholiness, that is awesome. And the feminine woman knows that. She sees the power and she says, wow, do you know what you just did for the purpose of creation? Do you know what you just did for Hashem? That's an amazing view of the world. And that's our view. That's our view as women. We know that what we see is not the whole story. And thanks to the Tanya, thanks to the teachings of Chassidus, we now know what's beneath. You know, we knew the whole time that what we see is not the whole story. But did we know the whole story? Not really. But we knew that we weren't getting intimidated by what we saw. So what's more to the story? And the teachings of Chassidus are showing us what's beneath the surface. There's a reason that we were created unholy. We have a job to do. So don't get down. Don't be upset at yourself. Do your mission with joy and pride and enthusiasm. Because this is God's world. This is how he made us. And do you know what you do for Hashem every time you do a mitzvah? From your unholy, imperfect place. Now we know. And once we know, once it's been verbalized and we understand and we learn and we understand, now we as women are the examples. We can lead the way to Mashiach. Because what's going to bring Mashiach? What is Mashiach? What is the goal? for which Hashem created the world. If Hashem wanted a perfect world, why didn't he create it? If he wanted us all to be tzaddikim, make us tzaddikim. But it's not that way. What Hashem wants is not perfection. Hashem had perfection. He was perfect. He is perfect. He will always be perfect. But perfection wasn't enough, isn't enough. So what was Hashem after? That he created this imperfect world. Hashem said, I am perfect, but all my perfection devoted to me is just not enough, is meaningless. I want you. I want someone to be with. So Hashem created a whole world and everything in it, so we have a place to be. And he created us not as tzaddikim, because tzaddikim don't have their own identity. They don't have a separate I from Hashem. They're only devoted to Hashem. But he created most of us, the average person, as a separate I, that we can say I, and we do have our needs, and we are distracted by ourselves. And so when somebody does a sin, it's, and when you learn about the levels of Russia, there's the Russia Virale, Russia Vitaivle, it's not always against Hashem. It's just, I have needs and I'm focusing on me. I am my own reality. That's a Russia. I am my own reality. Who did that to us? Who made us that way? It's all part of the plan. Hashem made us that way. Why? Because if you have a separate I, that you can be devoted to your I your whole life, that it's really like this separate reality with its own needs. And yet, you have your thoughts, you have your feeling, you have your taivas, and yet you say, wait, Hashem is real. Hashem has his need. So I'm not the only reality. Me and my needs is not the whole story. I have a creator who created the world for a reason, for a purpose. Is there something I can do for him? And at the moment that Hashem becomes real to you and his need becomes real and you realize, whoa, there's another bigger reality, even bigger than me. I'm real, but God is even more real. And he's waiting for me to do a mitzvah. That's the world of a Beinonit. A Beinonit is where he feels his own reality very strongly. But God is standing right here, waiting for my mitzvah. What am I going to do? Make him wait? Disappoint him? I like that non-kosher sandwich, but Hashem doesn't like it. And he's right here. So the Beinonit is like, I would love to eat that non-kosher sandwich, but I just can't do it to Hashem. That's amazing. That's amazing. Each time the Beinonit makes that choice. And the more Hasidus we learn, the more that Hashem's reality can become more and more real, so that there's a choice. Without learning about Hashem and without learning about Hashem's need and purpose and waiting for us, what every mitzvah means to Hashem, then really the only real reality is my own. And I have no choice to do the mitzvah, but for my own benefit, because I only know about what it can do for me. I only know about my reality. The Alter Rebbe made it possible and opened up for us another reason to do a mitzvah. Explained to us that there's Hashem's reality is even more real than our own. And don't try to fix your reality. Don't try to make you into a tzaddik, that you desire the mitzvah. That's not your mission. That's the tzaddik. Your mission is to learn about Hashem, feel his need, feel the Eibishter waiting, and take every opportunity you can to do something for him from wherever you are and wherever you live and whatever stage you're up to. That's the incredible ability of the Beinonit. And the Beinonit, if he forgets for a moment about Hashem and he's only thinking about him, then sin is absolutely available. Like, why not? Why not eat the non-kosher sandwich? But it's because he's only thinking about his reality and his world. But the moment that Hashem comes back into his mind, he says, what did I just do? I forgot. It was all me for a moment. And I am not holy. So the non-kosher sandwich looked delicious. But now I remembered, 1 second, this is God's world. He was waiting. He's disappointed. What did I do? And that's what tshuva is. Tshuva is, I forgot about you for a minute. This is the world that a woman lives in. Every mother lives in this space. Like, she has her own reality. She is a woman. She's hungry. She's tired. She needs to sleep. She needs to go to work. She wants to go do her, whatever she's in the mood of, her art. And that's great. There's good things about her, not such good things about her. She could spend the rest of her life working on herself to be a better person, a more developed person. And yet, she says, it's not enough. It's not enough. She's sounding a little bit like God. She's sounding like God when she says that. God was perfect and yet said, it's not enough. I want you in my life. And that is the feminine voice inside of every woman. By the time she yearns to get married, she's saying, I'm good, but it's just not enough to be just me. And she yearns to have her husband in her life. That's very deep. She's saying, having only my reality to live in is not enough. I want to bring another person with his whole reality and his own needs and his opinion and his desires and his challenges into my life. And when I have that, then I'll be free to be me. Which is interesting. You would think just being you is good enough. Spend the rest of your life taking care of you. And yet a woman doesn't want that. She wants the freedom to be bigger than her own reality. Have the choice to go beyond herself and say, what do you need? That's the gift of being married. Having someone else. And a woman knows that joy. She knows the pleasure of, she's not making it for herself. She's getting up, she's doing, she's shopping, she's making breakfast and dinner and lunch. And people can look at her and say, what are you doing? Why do you work so hard? Just take care of yourself. You have a husband, you have children, you have grandchildren, you have so much going on. What are you happy about? Why are you smiling? But it's not a sunlight pleasure. It's not the pleasure of efficiency, of easy, of this is good for me. It's the pleasure, it's the feminine, humble pleasure of, I have you, not what I'm doing for you, not what you're doing for me. Being with you is the greatest pleasure. And that's why a woman has this incredible power, superpower strength to be able to be there for so many. And one matriarch, what she does for a whole family is incredible. But the biggest gift that the matriarch of any family does is not what she's cooking and what she's making and what she's doing, even though that's incredible. It's the fact that she wants her family. The yearning of, I want you in my life. With you here, life will be good. Life is good. It's the pleasure of someone. That's what makes us necessary in the world, because your mother wants you. It makes your husband feel centered in the world. It makes your children feel welcomed in the world. They are welcomed because you want them. And that doesn't take away from the fact that you are a human being with your own needs and with so many needs that you could be devoted to you for the rest of your life. And yet you choose to welcome someone else in. That's the life of a Beinonit. That's the Beinonit. The Beinonit says, I could be busy with myself forever. And I have so much fixing to do of myself. I literally can be reading self-help books for the rest of my life. There's so much to fix, but that's not the goal. The goal is not my perfection. I want you here in my life. We welcome the Eibishter. You're welcome here. I need to become a lot better, so I could be busy with my self-help. But Eibishter, do you need something? You're waiting for me to keep Shabbos? I'll do it for you. So it's the recognition that there's someone else exists and someone else is important to you. And all the while that we're aware of the someone else in our life, we have incredible strength to do incredible things. Not because we're incredible people, but because we're so aware of our someone else that we desire. And the moment that we, like as mothers or as wives or as bubbies, the moment that we go back into I, we lose all that power to be there for them. Like if we're thinking just about ourselves and what we need, then the fact that so many people are depending on us is completely overwhelming. And we can feel like a shmata, like everyone's pulling me in a million directions. This is crazy. I can't handle this. That's when we're thinking as an I. But when we're thinking as a we, which is a wife, when it's the wife in you or the mother in you or the bubby in you or the yid in you that's talking, then it's not about, do I have the strength? Do I have the ability? It's the feeling of, you can't go anywhere. Stay with me. And then whatever it takes, we'll figure out how to handle in the sunlight, all the needs that everybody has. We'll figure out, do we have to hire help? Do we have to, do I have to exercise more so I have more strength? Do we need more vitamins? What do we need to do to be able to take care of everyone's needs? But the absolute is, don't go anywhere. Hashem, I'm so happy to be your Yid. Thank you for needing me. I'm here for you. I'm so happy to be your wife and that you're my husband. Thank you. Don't go anywhere. We'll figure it out. Yes, I get tired sometimes, but let's come up with solutions because you can't go anywhere. I need you here. So the reality of recognizing someone else is important, that's the incredible strength of the woman. And that's the incredible strength of the Beinonit. That when we're aware of someone else is right here and someone else is welcomed to be right here in my life, then doing for them is a pleasure, even when we're imperfect. And even when we're not the nicest people, we're not the kindest people, we're not the most generous, but yet somehow for my Eibishter, for my husband, for my children, for my grandchildren, I find incredible strength to do amazing things for them. Where did that come from? It's not from me. I don't have that ability, but they're right here and I want them here and they need, so somehow we find the strength. And that's, I think it's very, very liberating because all that we need to work on and strengthen in ourselves is this feminine voice of feeling the pleasure of not being an I, feeling the pleasure of being a we, that being a we is my deeper voice. It's my deeper voice. On the surface, it's just me and I and me, myself, and I, and my imperfect me that could be busy with me. But on my deeper voice, I want someone else with me. And when I'm in touch with that deeper voice, somehow I figure out how to be kind to them and how to be generous to them and how to give them what they need and how to do the mitzvah for Hashem. It's miraculous. But it's also, it's the purpose. We accomplish the purpose. It's the reason why we have our selfishness, so that we can look past it and say, you are important. If we didn't have our selfishness and we reached out to Hashem, or we reached out for our husband, or we reached out for our children, it wouldn't be that special, because there is no I that you're jumping over to get to the other. There's only the other. But if you have your sense of I, recognize how powerful that is. How it's not your problem. That's your perfect avodah. You have an I, and you can jump over it and choose the other person. So we don't have to be upset at our imperfection. From this place of imperfection, we can do amazing things. We can change the world. And we can lead, because we know it as a wife and as a mother. We can lead the world on how to do it for God. How to not focus on self-perfection, but how to focus on just welcoming the Eibishter into our lives. And from our place of imperfection, doing a mitzvah. And that's why we're able to go on the streets and give out Shabbos candles to a Jewish woman who didn't wash Negelwasser, who's not keeping Shabbos, who's not thinking about God. And we can say, here's Shabbos candles. Light them tonight. And we know that if she lights them that night, how incredible. Why? She became a tzaddik all of a sudden? No. She is who she is. And from her place, she just welcomed the Eibishter into her life by doing this one single mitzvah. This simple, unholy woman just welcomed the Eibishter into her life. The Eibishter has been waiting thousands of years for this moment to be welcomed into her life. It's amazing, amazing. That's the life of a Beinonit. How lucky are we to be part of this amazing, to be needed by Hashem, to be the imperfect we that we are, and yet he's still waiting for us and needs us, and we have the opportunity every morning to rise above and say, it's not about me. My goal is not to be perfect. My goal is to be his, to welcome him. And how can I do it? From my space. And everybody can do it in different ways, depending on what's available to them. Wherever there is an opening to be able to do for Hashem, we grab it. Some things are out of our reach. Some things maybe we'll never be able to do. But yet, can I give tzedakah today? Amazing. We cherish each mitzvah that we are able to do for Hashem. And we cherish being Jewish women. Being the example to our husbands, to our sons, to our daughters, guiding them, and to the world, that life is not about what it looks like on the surface. It's not the whole story. We're imperfect. Don't get distracted by your imperfection. Don't get down. It's not the whole story. There's a reason that we're imperfect. Let's get to the reason. Let's do the goal. Let's do the purpose. And Baruch Hashem, thanks to Rabbi Friedman, you're teaching Tanya every day. You're teaching, this is giving us access to our deeper selves, helping us understand the feminine side of Torah, and helping us understand what the bigger picture is beneath the surface. I remember my friends coming back from seminary, and they come back like so inspired, but it's almost inspired like a bachar. You know, they're davening 3 times a day and they're saying their Chitas and Rambam and all the things that is wonderful to do. But do they understand that if that doesn't fit into their lifestyle once they become a mother, are they feeling down about themselves? Are they feeling like they're not being as holy because they don't have time to do what they did in seminary, where they were learning all day and they were davening and they were chitas and they were even doing miftzayim, like all these things that they felt like, I'm a chassid, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. If we're only looking on the surface, if we're looking in the sunlight, then when you get busy with your baby and you don't have the time to do what you used to do, it's a little disappointing. It feels a little bit like there's not so much meaning. I'm not doing what, the holy life that men have the opportunity to do. Same Kippur, and my husband's in shul davening and I'm not. So here's where we say thank you to the Rebbe. Thank you to the Alter Rebbe for all of the teaching me what's beneath the surface of davening, what's beneath the surface of saying chitas, what's beneath the surface of learning all day. Beneath the surface is the Eibishter saying, I want you to be mine. I want you to welcome me into everything you do. I want you to use all of your abilities to be with me. If you can speak, speak to me. If you're thinking, think of me. So it's not just the action, it's what's happening beneath the surface. So look at how incredible the Beinonit is. She's single and she's going to seminary and she's finally reaching this point where she can be her holiest self, and she's davening and learning all day and doing holy things. And yet it's not enough. It's not enough that she is holy. She wants to support her husband in his Avodas Hashem, and she welcomes him into her life. And she says, you go to shul, I'll stay home and prepare. Look at what's happening there. This is not that she has to. Nobody's forcing her. This is coming from a deep yearning inside of her to not just be devoted to herself and to her own Avodas Hashem. She's going to support another Yid in his Avodas Hashem, because she's aware that Avodas Hashem in general, that doing every mitzvah and every time she davens and every time she learns is not because she's trying to be holy. It's because she's trying to be available to Hashem. So she knows, wait, only my being available to Hashem is important? Or every Yid's being available to Hashem is important? And she devotes herself to one individual and says, I'll help him be available. I'll support him. We'll do it together. Obviously, he's saying it to her as well to support her. But she's the one first welcoming him into her life. And when she's devoted not only to her own journey and to her own Avodas Hashem, but to his as well, now she feels like herself. Now she says, this is a life. And then she invites her children and she yearns. She's not forced. She yearns them into her life. She wants her children. And then it's Yom Kippur and the baby, there's no Erev, and the baby needs to be home and she stays. And this is less of an Avaida, or this is a triple Avaida. This Avodas Hashem is the highest level. Not only is she giving her word davening, if she tries to sneak in a little bit of davening in between when her baby's sleeping, if she can, giving some words, she's giving her entire being to the Eibishter. She's taking care of his Yiddish neshamas, of his Jewish children. And she's putting her own ruchnius aside for another Yid. So completely, not just like a favor like you do for a friend. When it's your child, you give your entire self. So once we realize that life with the Eibishter is not about holiness, and it's not about scoring points, and it's not about a checklist. It's about achdus. It's about fully being there for the Eibishter, for whatever he needs from you. And when what he needs is for you to be there for another Yiddish neshama, for a Jewish child that he entrusted in you, that is the highest thing. That's much more than giving your words in davening. It's giving your entire self to his precious children. I mean, that's why Shlomo HaMelech wrote the Eishes Chayil, because the Jewish woman is the epitome of Avodas Hashem. And the men look at the women and say, Halavai to be at that level where you can be available to Hashem so completely, every single second, consistently, and with no agenda of her own. It's not about how it's going to make her look, how it's going to make her feel, how holy she's going to be, whatever he needs. This year she can go to shul. Next year she doesn't go to shul. This year she's needed over here. Now she's needed over there. It's not about me, is what she says. It's about you, Eibishter. Wherever you need me, I'm yours. That's the example to the men. That's the role model. Going to shul is davening to ask Hashem to please help them reach that level of Avodas Hashem. What the woman has naturally is what they're striving for. She's living Avodas Hashem. He's yearning for that Avodas Hashem. So sometimes, and I remember I was at a class with your father years ago, and it was actually college students who are not busy being mothers yet. They're busy students. And one of them asked, I think it was in Stern College, and one of them asked, what do I do if I don't have time for davening? Like, I start my day at 7 o'clock in the morning, and should I be waking up, and it's a busy, busy day, should I be waking up an hour earlier so that I have time to daven? And he said, sometimes the desire to daven is your davening. The fact that you feel like, I wish I had time to daven, that's your davening for the day. And sometimes you have time just to say brachos. That's your davening for the day. But you do, when you have those, and you know that sometimes you have time to say brachos, and sometimes as a busy mother, you don't even have time for that. And I'm just learning this, like, brachos was always like, absolutely, of course, you can't start anything without brachos. But then there's some mornings where literally, like, there's such a rush, and it's either your children eating something and having lunch for school, or you saying your brachos. What are you going to do? So of course, halavai, if I could wake up earlier, and you could, one day maybe you'll be there that you could wake up earlier. But today, what does Hashem want you to do right now? The brachos, or make sure your child has something to eat? It's absolutely be there for your fellow Jew, and not just a fellow Jew, your child. That is Avodas Hashem. And we're not tzaddikim, so we can't do it all. And there's only a limited amount of time in the day. But when it's a Sunday and all of a sudden all your children had a special program and they're out and you have time and you can take out the siddur, absolutely take it out. The Rebbe didn't cut any corners for women. If they can daven mincha, daven mincha. You can daven ma'ariv. But just make sure that it's not because you're striving to be holy. And make sure that it's not making anyone else feel left out, and it's not taking away from your other responsibilities of making sure the ones that are depending on you, are you doing this instead of that? Hashem is the one that needs you to take care of your children. So that comes first. And when you daven, it's also with the intent that you're setting an example for your children. So as long as we do everything from our heart, and not from a place of, I need to daven because I need to daven. I don't need to daven. the Eibishter is waiting for my davening. But if the Eibishter is also waiting for me to go feed my baby that's crying, it's not a different agenda. It's the same Eibishter. So we say, Eibishter, wherever you need me is where I'm happy to be. So each woman at a different point in their life is able to do a different amount of davening. But every part of davening that we are able to do is a gift. If she can do all of it, is amazing, amazing. But let's make sure that we're davening with a feminine voice, not with like, this is really important. No, the Eibishter is really important. And I'm going to stop to give him the words he's waiting to hear. Then you're davening with a feminine voice. And we have to be that example to the men so they can learn how to daven like that.
Thank you very much. Do you have a few more minutes?
Yeah.
For questions from the audience?
Sure.
Thank you.